West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Woo! Tuesday morning, October 14th, 2025. Happy birthday, Charlie Kirk. We miss you. We love you. You have tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Bill's out this week. Got some stuff going on. So I said, let's push that progressive conservative debate discussion all the way up to 11, like they do on Spinal Tap. And that's what we're doing this week with a great lineup of co-hosts. Yesterday, Ted Trimpa. Absolutely fantastic day. Lots of discussion, lots of phone calls, text messages. Now today, Singh Badhesha. He is a political strategist here in Denver. And even kind of at the... Are you a card-carrying DSA member?
I am. I am a member of the Democratic Socialists of America of Denver, yeah.
There you go. So we're going to even push that. Ted would even be a card-carrying member of DSA.
Yeah, I listened to the show yesterday. I was like, man, I disagree with Ted on a lot of things. He had the scale. Someone called in about where are you on 0 to 100. I'm like, I don't think you can actually put the scale like that. But I'm not here really to talk about left versus right politics.
Yeah.
I think it's the bottom versus the top. You know, so let's bridge some gaps. That's what I want to talk about today.
It's going to be a really fun day. Grateful to have you. By the way, you're a new dad.
I am. Yes. So I was a little bit late this morning because I was just making sure the baby was going to be okay. So we should diaper change. Fed her a bottle and excited. She's sleeping right now. So by the time I'm back, hopefully I'll do the next feeding.
Oh, look at you jumping in. That's great.
Yeah, we're very blessed.
This is your first one, right?
First one, yeah.
So
baby girl.
you're in a fog. We'll
I am slightly sleep deprived. That is true.
We're gonna preview everything by saying, Deep is a brand new father. We've all been there. Where I can't even remember. It's such a fog in my life, that period where they're so young. And you're just trying to hang on. You got your job responsibilities and a brand new baby, and you're caring for your wife as she's recovering from everything. So good for you.
Yeah.
You're a little bit like Taylor Swift, that when the rubber meets the road, you become a social conservative.
I'm not sure if that's true. I'm not even sure if that's true for Taylor Swift, actually.
So I was claiming it. When I was like, T Swift, she married the high school football star. One man, she's getting married, she's going to be a wife, all that, So
I think that's still very traditional liberal
can.
values, still very left values to have a family and to take care of it. The question is, can you do that on one income, right? Can you do that while still living in America? So I don't know. I think my side's trying to push for more family values than your side is.
We're going to kick it off early this morning. I love it. Deep Singh Badhesha is going to be joining us all morning. And as always, you can join us by giving us a call at 303-696-1971 or texting us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Now is time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Clear. Expecting a high of 74 today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story.
So meanwhile, while the so-called Hitler is finding peace for Israel, the Democrats are still whining about him being an authoritarian Hitler, while we're all watching the authoritarian Hitler bring peace to the entire world.
Scott Adams nails it again. Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the U.S. backing the lasting peace between Israel and the Palestinians. The leaders released a statement Monday after the ceasefire deal in Gaza and emphasized equal rights for both sides.
War in Gaza is over. Humanitarian aid is now pouring in, including hundreds of truckloads of food, medical equipment, and other supplies, much of it paid for by people in this room. Civilians are returning to their homes. The hostages are reuniting. I mean, it's beautiful. I'm just watching it backstage. The level of love and sorrow, I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing when you see they haven't seen their mother, their father. They haven't seen them in such a long time, and they lived in a tunnel, a very little tunnel, very deep. And the level of love is just incredible. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's, in one sense, it's so horrible that it could have taken place, but in another sense, it's so beautiful to see a new and beautiful day is rising. And now,
and obviously an incredible day for DJT yesterday, and just minutes ago he's posting on True Social to Time Magazine. He did not like the photo of him, the low angle photo of him from behind. He said that they disappeared his hair, and it looks like a little miniature crown on top of his head. So yeah, it is kind of a different looking photo on Time Magazine. He liked the article, but he didn't like the cover photo. I understand. After a day like yesterday, you could see why. You know what? Give me a good photo. And of course, the naysayers. There are plenty of them out there. Here's one on Air Force One.
Declaring peace for the whole Middle East. 3,000 years of peace.
you want more people to be killed? What do you want, another 400,000 people to be killed? Is that what you're looking for?
In terms of the risks in Gaza, we're already seeing
Risk. So you mean let them fight on for another couple of years and let some more buildings fall down on top of people and keep it going? No, we did it the right way. We did it. I think our timing was perfect, actually.
in terms of
Yep, I agree with him. So the reporter, of course, was this the right time to do it? And Trump's like, yeah, let's stop killing people, all right? How about we see no more lives lost? Senate greaseballs roll back to the Capitol today for another push to end the Schumer shutdown. House Democrats meeting to talk about their next steps. How about just end it right now? You can do that, Dems. The White House will be hosting a celebration, of course, for Charlie Kirk this morning and his life today on his birthday. DJT will be posthumously awarding Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, at the White House also today. That is also an absolute must-see. The man who crashed and killed a Golden police officer last year has reached a plea agreement to a number of charges. Fox 31 legal analyst Christopher Decker says the case underscores the stakes when a public servant is killed in the line of duty.
All vehicular homicides are tragic, but anytime we have a public servant like a state trooper or a police officer that's injured in the line of duty, just showing up, doing their job, it's particularly tragic.
Amen to that. Stephen Greer pleaded guilty to vehicular homicide, DUI, and vehicular assault. He was accused of causing a chain reaction crash on Highway 58 last November, leading to Officer Evan Dunn's death. Greer faces between 4 to 18 years in prison when he's sentenced in January. All right, the Avalanche beat the Sabres last night 3-1. They are 3-0-1. Great start for them. Monday Night Football, the Falcons upset the Bills 24-14. The Bears, big win over the Commanders 25-24. 43 in Castle Pines, 42 in Arvada, 45 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue, and Deep Singh in for Billy. He's a new father. Congratulations. We're going to make his youngster a conservative before the end of the day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 7:10 5-day forecast still could see a few showers into the early morning hours, and then morning clouds give way to sunshine in the Denver metro. Morning temperature readings in the mid-40s with highs mid-70s. Clear Tuesday night, upper 40s with middle and upper 70s Wednesday. Sunny and breezy for midweek. Then another Pacific trough will bring us rain showers Wednesday night into Thursday. Thursday, Friday, highs mid-60s. Weather brought to you by L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call 720-851-1691 or visit them online at besteverhvac.com. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us live in studio is Deep Singh Badhesha, political strategist here in Colorado, down at the state capitol, pushing it in a more progressive direction. Deep, why don't you introduce yourself to folks? Where are you from? What do you do? What do you study? All that stuff.
So yeah, glad to be back here. Excited to be here. Name's Deep Singh Badhesha, as you said. I grew up in Colorado, actually. So my parents have been here for a long time. My family's been here for a long time. So actually, my great-granduncle got to America in 1929 in California. So my dad's family has been kind of in the Central Valley for a long time. So we're coming up at 100 years in 4 years. So it's really funny when folks are like, "You're not even from here." I'm like, family's been here for almost 100 years.
Yeah, you're pretty good.
Like, I'm here longer than most of you all. So by way of New York City, where my dad was a taxi driver, he was an irrigation ditch layer and a fruit picker in California before that. Ended up in Colorado Springs, Colorado when I was a baby. So I moved here when I was about 8 months, 11 months old, and grew up in Colorado Springs. So I grew up in Colorado Springs, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about my political evolution in the future. But growing up in Colorado Springs, I grew up kind of conservative. You know, my parents, my mom voted for Clinton, but then she voted for Bush twice. And I kind of grew up like a libertarian. And I grew up a little bit conservative. But I did really like Barack Obama. And then I kind of went to this like Tea Party wave. And from Barack Obama, I went to an Occupy Wall Street saying like, hey, these bankers are bankrupting my neighbors. Yeah. And then from there, I went to like a libertarian and be like, no one's going to take care of these people. We should let them shut down. Tea Party-esque movement. I was a huge fan of folks like Bobby Jindal and Nikki Haley, because I looked around and they're like, these are Punjabi folks, these are Indian folks winning elections in the South, and it looks like they could have some real leadership. So I was kind of in that ecosystem for a bit, and then I sort of got indoctrinated, as someone would say, in college. But I kind of woke up to the realities, right? I saw what was going on, and from there I became a Democrat and more lefty, became a Bernie Sanders fan, and then the rest is history. So now I worked as a teacher, worked as an organizer, went to law school, started off my legal career clerking at the Colorado Supreme Court. So I have some background in the law there, hopped around the executive department and the legislative department. Now work as a lobbyist and also side hustle on campaigns, doing strategy for more of the lefty Democratic things. So I really focus on a lot of primaries, not as much general elections. So it's a new thing in Colorado, but it's been fun.
And yesterday we had Ted Trimp on. Ted talked about kind of a Tea Party activation taking place within the Democrat Party, where people, similar to what happened in 2010 with conservatives, where they said, well, you're not conservative enough, you're kind of rhinos, you're being soft Republicans, we want real conservatives. On the left side now, the Democrats are saying, some Democrats are saying, well, you're not progressive enough, you're too male, pale, and stale. as Tyler Sandberg would say about people like Michael Bennett and John Hickenlooper. And you've called for primaries against people like John Hickenlooper. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I think the Tea Party movement, ironically, saved the Republican Party in ways that I didn't realize. You probably remember like all the autopsies after Barack Obama won in 2008. After Barack Obama won in 2008, he had a blank check from the American people, basically. 60 senators, plus 70 seat in the House, huge victories everywhere. He was winning Iowa, Florida, Ohio, everywhere. It was an amazing victory. And Republicans were like, we're doomed. They wrote Republicans will never win an election again, right? And you never would have thought the answer to Barack Obama would have been someone like Donald Trump if you were part of the D.C. Beltway consultants, right? 100%. But if you saw what was happening to America and that Barack Obama was promising the working class a better deal and ended up not giving them that deal, it wasn't going to be Mitt Romney who was going to give them that. It was going to be someone like Ted Cruz. It was going to be someone who was activating more of a populist base. And I disagree with Donald Trump on a lot of things, but his rhetoric about the American worker as being left to right is right. And that's what Democrats need to face now. Democrats have been in charge of this state for however long, right?
Well, at least a decade, total control.
And their style of politics isn't working. And at the national level, we're getting our asses beat by, can I say asses? We're about to find out.
Okay on that one. There's some words, no, we can't. Yeah, broadcast radio, but go ahead.
We're getting beat. So we need to have a Tea Party-esque movement to get back to relevancy, because there are things in the corporate Democratic Party that are leaving American workers behind, and it's time for a resurgence of a more American worker-first party. And I think you've already seen this happen across the nation with folks like Zohran Mamdani in New York City, and I think Colorado and other places in the primary are going to be the next testing ground for this, right? You have someone like Graham Plattner in Maine, right? An oyster farmer, someone who's running a left populist style. He's like a big, rugged, tough guy. And he's running with this idea like, hey, we can have a different kind of Democratic Party. And I think you're going to see that all through the next 12 months.
That's Singh Badhesha is joining us live in studio. He'll be with us all 4 hours, and you're invited to be a part of the conversation by giving us a call at 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. I want to ask you about this interesting dynamic. So I go and talk to people. I go down until I get assaulted. I go down and talk to people at these protests. And I noticed there was a shift in the protests at the anti-ICE rally. It was more violent than some of the previous No Kings rallies, those types of things. But I went to the Bernie Sanders rally, and if you'd airdropped me into it, just and asked me where I was, I would have said a John Tesh concert. Right? It was mostly boomers, gray hair, holding little seats that they carried with them, that type of thing. Not radical purple-haired socialists. So I go down there, and there's 30,000 of these folks down at the Civic Center Park to see Bernie Sanders. I go, wow, this is a big movement. And to give people context, Barack Obama, 75,000. Mitt Romney pulled in 9,000 at Red Rocks at his biggest rally. Bernie Sanders, 30,000. So Bernie Sanders is the biggest political turnout since Barack Obama in Greek columns at Mile High Stadium in 2008. Okay. And then they elect pale, male, and stale. Mike Johnston, John Hickenlooper, Michael Bennett, Phil Weiser. Like, there's a mold there, okay, that gets elected in Colorado. They wear jeans and blue shirts, and they're very boring. So I'm watching AOC. By the way, Magellan Strategy saying she's the most favorable candidate out there right now. And then when it comes to statewide elections, it's a moderate that gets elected. Give me your analysis of that.
Yeah, I was going to actually highlight that the Bernie Sanders rally wasn't just Bernie Sanders. It was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? Congresswoman AOC is becoming sort of one of the de facto leaders of the left and of the Democratic Party in general, right? When folks want to see where the Democratic Party is and where the future is, they're looking for AOC, right? When it came to the New York City primaries, people were looking, where's AOC going to weigh in? What's going to happen there, right? And the fact that she has a strong alliance and friendship with Zohran Mamdani kind of shows you where I hope the party is heading. I will say, I think we're going to have a pretty great challenger to John Hickenlooper here soon, right? I think it's going to be a young person, a woman, a Latina. We are going to be looking into this.
Is that Lorena Garcia?
No. Lorena tried it. She was great. She was fantastic. Lorena's an amazing representative. But the thing is, I think there are folks seriously considering and kicking the tires about primarying John Hickenlooper. And if you've seen John Hickenlooper around, like I've heard how he was at the Jeffco dinner, how he was at Crowfest. I think John Hickenlooper is having a little bit of Biden-itis where he is becoming very, very senior, right? At the end of his term, I think he's going to be over 80 years old. And, Hickenlooper, like, thank you for keeping the state blue in 2010 and 2014, which were really red years in Colorado. Thanks for being a Denver mayor. Thanks for taking Cory Gardner out. You should just go out to pasture. You have a young son. You have a kid. It's time to retire, right, and pass the torch. So I think there you're going to see different types of leaders emerge, different types of challengers emerge. But you are right in general when it comes to the governor's race between Phil Weiser and Michael Bennet is to white
shades, shades of
the attorney
pale.
general's race. The attorney general's race is going to be something interesting to watch. The four candidates there are Jenna Griswold, Michael Dougherty, David Seligman, and Hazel Doshi. Hazel Doshi is a South Asian woman who had worked in the Barack Obama and Biden administrations. She's someone who worked closely with Lena Khan at the FCC to go after these big tech companies, right? And then you have David Seligman, who's been a renters champion, a workers champion, right? So those two candidates in particular are trying to have a new mold of the Democratic Party, right? So the Attorney General's race might be more of a key about where the party's going. Jenna Griswold, I know maybe Republicans think this, that she's like a far left person, right? But she's very, very moderate. Right, she's very moderate.
Oh, come on.
I also don't think she's going to be a great attorney general. I mean, if you've seen how she's managed the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah, I know. She can't get anyone to stay working there. They leak the password. She takes her marching orders from Planned Parenthood.
The department, I think Planned Parenthood is a great organization. It's fine. But here's the thing. The Department of Law is the largest law firm, essentially, in Colorado. It hires hundreds of attorneys, and these are attorneys that protect water rights, consumer rights, fight anti-monopoly cases, right? These are people who really need to be at the top of the game and need a leader at the top who's going to do that. Phil Weiser's done a great job over the last 8 years really running that operation. But if you have someone like Jenna come in and bring that chaos, it's going to be an issue. And then you have these two more left candidates, right, coming from a new side of the Democratic Party who are offering a different vision. So I think the Attorney General's race is actually where things will maybe shake out. So maybe there'll be a U.S. Senate primary they should take a look at, and then, of course, the Attorney General's race. I think those are the two things you'll see in the future of the Colorado Democratic Party.
Who do you think is going to be the nominee for governor? Do you think it'll be Bennett or Weiser?
I think it's going to be Weiser, because if the rooms I've been in, it has been crazy. I was in the Denver Democratic Party Central Committee, right? I'm an officer in the Denver Democratic Party. And we were having our Central Committee meetings as we do every 6 months or every quarter, right? And we usually invite all the candidates to come and speak. So, Michael Bennet goes up there and he talks about how he's trying to fight Trump and very, very lukewarm, golf claps, oh, thanks, Michael Bennet, for being here. Phil Weiser gets up there. On the way up to the stage, standing ovation. I'm like, I don't think I've seen this before.
For what?
And then he, gives a speech. He talks about what he's delivered for Colorado in terms of taking Big Pharma to task, protecting our clean air and water, protecting consumer rights, going after bad landlords, right? And then fighting the Trump administration, right? And then on the way back down, he gets another ovation, and the crowd breaks into a chant, right? So much so that I look over at the Bennett staffer, and he's like, I think we're in trouble, but no one on Bennett's team believes me. And Bennett's team is running races from 10 years ago, 15 years ago. They think they can just raise a bunch of money from corporate donors, right? Let's get $10 million, $15 million, and we're going to just put a bunch of advertisements on, and that's how we win elections. And I don't think that's how you win elections anymore, right? Kamala Harris spent $1.5 billion to lose, right? Money doesn't win elections in the way that people think it does anymore, right? It's about intention. It's about getting out there and getting your message across. And what I see is, whether it's on Reddit or it's on social media or it's in these small grassroots rooms, is Phil Weiser is catching more fire than Michael Bennet is. And this is just the early things, right? If this is an early indicator, then I think Michael Bennett's in some serious trouble.
So everything you listed for Phil Weiser, though, let's go through it. Pharma, water, going after Trump. What did I miss something else?
Anti-monopoly.
Okay.
So like
who did he break up on that?
The grocery stores is something that he looked at. I mean, people look at the 9 News merger as well. So he's been very active in that space as well.
Okay.
He was an antitrust professor. Actually, when I was at CU Law School, he taught the antitrust class.
The Attorney General, but nothing you listed there had to do with crime or safety.
I think crime and safety, if you have actually been looking at the statistics, crime and safety has gotten better in Denver and has gotten better in Colorado.
Since the pandemic?
Well, since the pandemic in the last couple of years has been dropping. That is a concern, but I think we will probably have different kinds of answers about how to address crime and safety. Whether it's
I don't think there should be any.
I agree. I agree. And the question is, do you get safer and better streets by just locking up more people?
Yes.
Spending more and more taxpayer money and just cycling them in and out of this carceral system, or do you alleviate the leading causes of crime, which is poverty in America, right?
The leading cause of car thefts is not poverty.
Why don't you steal cars?
Because I was told it was wrong. You right? And I don't want to go to jail.
Yeah. Here's stealing cars.
Look, we've all gone through financial hard times. I didn't go out and go, well, now I'm going to start stealing a car.
And there are ways to crack down on the auto thefts. There's ways to crack down on the bicycle thefts, right? There's ways to crack down on that crime. And that's something that the Attorney General can speak to his record on, and Michael Bennet can try to speak to whatever record he would have in the U.S. Senate about that, right? When it comes from my branch of the Democratic Party, right, and we're looking at how do you actually make communities safer, right? That starts with providing them a good level of life that they're willing to, that they wouldn't want to squander with crime, right? Crime isn't something that someone just goes and does without necessity, right? It's something that we need to prevent by making sure people have good jobs, that people have good homes, that people have other purposes in life. And you've seen this across the board and across the countries is when young men cannot get employed, right? When young men and women can't get deployed, don't have good jobs, they will turn to other ways to provide for their families.
That line of argument could hold if it was just about getting resources. A lot of crime is about assault, about rape. What does that have to do with just not having enough resources?
When it comes to those type of issues, right, I think there is a lot of resources that we could put in there still, right? Whether it's like gun violence prevention, about like who has guns in the home and when are they used violently, that's something that folks should look at, and that's something that Democrats have offered solutions for. And that is something that happens in both red communities and blue communities, in rural communities and urban communities, right? And that is part of the American experience that we need to tackle.
Gun violence?
Well, gun violence is. Domestic violence
mostly happens in blue communities.
That's not necessarily true. Per capita,
like Omaha versus Chicago, bro.
Per capita, it also happens in rural communities, and it also happens in red states. Actually, if you look at the statistics, people think that Chicago and New York City are the highest in terms of gun violence. They're not per capita. They're large cities, right? Chicago's the third largest city. New York City is the first largest city, right? Of course, they're going to have more in magnitude. But if you look at it per capita, some of the most violent places are red communities, are rural communities. And we have to ask ourselves, what is breaking in the American spirit? And perhaps it's the fact that folks like Mitt Romney and Republicans and Democrats shipped all their jobs overseas, right? If we're looking at what does the opioid epidemic vastly affected rural America, right?
Oh, 100%.
And vastly affected white America. And is a solution to the opioid crisis to go after the big pharma companies and to give these folks these resources they need? Or is it to go in rural America and lock them all up?
Both. 100% both. Dude, if you're going to go after big pharma and that stupid pill doctor in West Virginia, 100% I want to lock that guy up, right?
We have been fighting a war on crime, and we've seen how other nations address war on, a war on drugs. Right?
Yeah, right.
The war on drugs has not gotten us anywhere. Locking more people up for their addiction, locking more people up for things, for these like moments of despair in their life, right? that hasn't led to the solutions we want. But when you look at other countries, whether it's Portugal, Asian countries, European countries, you need to treat it like a public health crisis that it is.
We did that in Portland. Like, Oregon was a perfect example of embracing that ideology. And the drug consumption went up. The drug addiction went up. It got so bad that Oregon went back on their idea of treating it like a public health crisis. Because if you just hand out encouragements to go get counseling and you're drug addicted, no one's going to do that.
So this is something that the Democratic Party should focus on, right? And the way they should focus on is when you talk about the leading causes of crime, the leading causes of homelessness, the leading causes of addiction, right? The things that lead to society unraveling, a lot of these things are downstream from healthcare, right? And when you're looking at most of the developed countries in the world, European countries, Asian countries, and South American countries, their healthcare systems are much more robust than ours
they're
are.
more awful. You're going to spend more time waiting in line for your healthcare.
People have access to doctors. People have access to primary care, and it's not going to bankrupt them. I can't tell you how many working class Americans I talk to who avoid seeing the doctor. Right? They're like, oh, I had this back pain, but I'll try to self-medicate it, right? Or like, oh, I had this issue with my knee, but I know it's going to cost a fortune and my insurance is not going to cover it. I'm going to wait for it, right? Or folks who end up needing care for cancer or needing care for an accident that they got in and then lose their home and lose their job for it, right? These are the things that Democrats can solve by implementing single-payer health care, or at the very least a public option, right? These are the things, like if you want to see safer, better, healthier communities, you need to start by healing them. And the way to start healing them is providing more universal health care.
Deep, you believe that crime is associated with lack of health care access?
I think it's one of the symptoms. You got to think about root causes, right? Like a dose, like a drop of prevention is worth a dose of cure.
Yeah.
If you've heard this term before.
Right.
Yeah. You need to be addressing the underlying causes, right? If you're just rotating people in and out of an incarceral system, right, where we're spending hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, right? Your taxpayer money goes to fund a prison industrial complex that just takes folks off the streets, into the jail, back into the streets. When you're spending all this money on this, what I'm saying is, why don't we treat the underlying symptoms that have gotten us here, right? And it's not just healthcare. Right? We're talking about how the American workers have been exploited, right? How oligarchs and billionaires have concentrated monopoly power so far that unions can't stand up, that workers now are paid less than they were 20, 30 years ago. The fact that my generation and even parts of your generation can't afford home ownership anymore, right? The fact that college is not attainable, the fact that school days are getting shorter and shorter, the school year is getting shorter and shorter, right? We are seeing a fraying of American society all across the board for the 99%, while the 1% keep getting richer. Right? And that's the thing that Democrats need to focus on, is like, if you're going to tell me the American people and the Colorado people are getting a raw deal, I'm going to agree with you. They are getting a raw deal.
It's completely dominated by Democrats.
It's dominated by the 1%. Let's talk about how did we flip this state blue, in your opinion?
Okay, how did Colorado go blue? Few aspects of it, right? Because it's not just a magic pill. It was serious investment from a handful of people: Jared Polis, Pat Stryker, Tim Gill.
And what's their net worths,
right?
roughly?
Oh yeah, no, they had a lot of money to spend.
Yeah,
right, and that matters. But I also think our state has really bought into this oppressor versus oppressed mentality. Like when I go down and talk to these people at protests, they believe in this kind of, there's an oppressor out there and we really need to fight it. And the best way we do it is by taking everyone's tax dollars and giving it to the government.
I don't necessarily think more and more taxes and more government services is how we alleviate this problem.
But aren't you a socialist?
The way that we solve this is by giving people more about their labor that they already do, right? Right now, people's labor is being exploited, and taxes oftentimes feel like that exploitation of it, right? If you're an American worker right now and you see your federal taxes go out, right? And you see your Colorado taxes go out, and then you hit a pothole,
Yeah,
or
right.
you get sick, or your family gets sick, and you get you go bankrupt because of the healthcare treatment, right? And your schools aren't as funded as they should be, right? And your college still costs a fortune. You're like, what am I getting for this tax dollars, right? Meanwhile, you see that the 3 most wealthy zip codes in America now are outside of D.C.
Yes.
And you see this D.C.
100%.
elite class do it, right? And you see Democrats on one end say, like, hey, that's fine. You know, status quo, it'll trickle down to you. But then you see Republicans like a Donald Trump come in and say, hey, you know, those guys are getting rich, and I'm going to try to make sure you get rich too.
Mm-hmm.
That is labor exploitation, and only one side is talking about it right now. My solution is to make sure people have more access to their labor, right? And if they do pay taxes, they finally get the services that they deserve.
Well, why not just fewer taxes?
I think if we're going to talk about fewer taxes, one of the things we should do is less of a military-industrial complex, right? It's something that actually the Republicans have pivoted and taken over the issue, and Democrats have. You right now were fighting that our taxpayer dollars shouldn't go to fund healthcare, right?
For illegal immigrants.
Here's the thing. Our taxpayer money right now goes to countries like Israel that have universal healthcare, that have fully funded college for their citizens, but we send our taxpayers money. While Americans do not have health care, while Americans do not have access to good, high-quality education, to a country that has both, so that they have bombs to kill kids. And if you're an American worker,
You're not aiming at kids. Come
if you're
on.
an American worker and you see that level of exploitation, whether it's your tax dollars or the fact that your boss is driving up in a Maserati while you haven't seen a substantive salary or hourly wage increase, you're going to be mad at the system, right? And a Democratic Party that's not addressing those things is going to fail.
Yeah, and that goes back to the original point that we were debating about these upcoming primaries. I do want to ask you this, though. So you care about a lot about root causes, and when you look at crime, you go, let's go upstream. Let's get to the root causes. How about in any of that, would you explore the importance of a healthy family? The idea of a mom and a dad in a committed monogamous relationship pouring into a child and raising them. Because so much of crime, incarceration, you go back to family structure. You go back and look at there's a lack of a father in the house, for instance. So you seem very quick to run to solutions that would require government solutions. How about just personal family formation?
I don't see as much as government solutions as I see as government protections of your rights, right? You deserve the right to health care. You deserve the right to a good job. You deserve your taxpayer money.
You know that's a positive right, which isn't what our Constitution's about. It's a negative rights Constitution.
Hear me out. In America, we used to be able to fund a family's life with one income, right? And if you look at household income has increased over the last 10 or 20 years. But that's because we've gone from one adult working in a household to 2 adults working in a household.
Correct.
Right? It's a 2-income trap that we've had, is that we have more and more people working in a household, right? And less money to go around, right? It's hard to imagine, if you're part of my generation, buying a house and having kids with a single income unless you've done extraordinarily well, right? So what I am talking about is pro-American family things, right? We should be able to afford a wife, 2 kids, a husband, whoever you choose as your life partner, and kids, and a house on one income.
I agree with you, but Deep, that's not why men are abandoning their families in leaving moms to raise the kids, just because the financial stress of it is. So why not encourage men to stay with the women that they're having kids with, build a family, and in doing that, you're going to create stability, because just because you're poor doesn't mean you're going to go commit a crime. But if you don't have a dad around, there's big social impacts to that. So why not just encourage that?
Going back to the war on crime, right? If we were talking about what happened to fathers in homes, especially what happened to fathers in homes in low-income communities, right? They were targeted by law enforcement. They were targeted by even like federal law enforcement to go into communities and to gut these communities. Then we ask ourselves, what happened to the fathers in the communities, right? What happened to...
Hold on. You're saying that the effort to break up the family was intentional by law enforcement?
I don't have to tell you that it's intentional. I could give you a couple books and research studies and evidence from the government that it was intentional, right? Whether you look at the Latino communities, the Black communities, the Native American communities, it was an intentional separation of these families. And then down the line, people go, like, what happened to these families? Well, ironically, it was government intervention, right?
Deep, you're saying law enforcement's the reason why in urban communities you have such high single parents?
I would say the exploitation of these individuals, and of course, I think the school to prison pipeline that targets a lot of men of color, particularly boys of color, and the targeted drug enforcement that you saw in Black and brown communities, of course. Wow. But there are ways to go back and fix these things, right? There are ways to make the family stronger, and the way you can start doing that is by paying American workers their fair share. How does it make sense that in a time of rising prices, right, a time of inflation, that oligarchs, billionaires, capitalists, these stockholders made record profits while American workers got none of the shares?
You think that's going to get men back into the household, as if they just make a living wage? They'll stop
a thriving wage, a living wage, of course.
Multiple relationships. Okay, we're... Oh man, I'm just looking at the text messages. Jammed or super hot text messages this morning. Thank you. Deep is joining us live in studio for the entirety of the show. Give us a call at 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line. We're going to be hitting off all day. Deep Singh Badhesha, political strategist, also a member of the Democrat Socialists of America, so you know it's going to be hot today. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS. it off. Good morning, Denver, Colorado, and all of you around the nation listening on the socials. It's the Jeff and Bill Show. Billy's out this week, and I said, you know what, let's just push the conservative, progressive debate and discussion that this country's so hungry for to 11 and bring in the state's top progressive voices. Yesterday, Ted Trimpa. Today, Deep Singh Badhesha. Tomorrow, Patty Calhoun from Westward. Thursday, Vic Vela. Friday, CityCast Denver. We're having a ton of fun. And I really appreciate Deep being able to come in to conservative talk radio, be bold on what he believes, take the text messages, the phone calls. It's hot. It's awesome. Well done, sir. I appreciate it. All right, let's go to, you want to do some phone calls?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, let's do Grant Conifer. Good morning, Grant. You're on with Jeff and Deep Singh Badhesha.
Hey, good morning. Firstly, people who say right after every statement are searching for facts when there are none. So we'll get that out of the way. Secondly, Jeff, thank you for doing this. This is the best form of exposure for what the problem is against issues that we're facing. Democrats thrive on a victim mentality and the concept that everything that is happening to you is because you are being oppressed. And everything that has come out of your guest's mouth thus far is stating that clearly and beautifully. So thank you.
Well, let's give him a chance to respond. Deep, your thoughts on what he said?
I think it's funny to say that, like, Democrats or even Democratic sources have a victim mentality when Donald Trump is in the White House. And Donald Trump has, he won the popular vote. He has power over Senate. He has power over the House. And there's no one who seems like a bigger victim when they're speaking than Donald Trump, right? He's going out there like, oh, poor me, look at me. I was a victim of all these lawsuits, right? And the thing is, when he was speaking to the American people, he did get something right, that the American people have gotten a raw deal, right? That's something that Democrats failed to do, that Biden failed to do, that Kamala failed to do, is they didn't say, hey, the American people are getting a bad deal. But Donald Trump did say that. Republicans did say that, right? They said, we have gutted services in this country. We have taken the jobs and shipped them overseas. And you can no longer afford a house. You no longer have a rising wage, right? And if you want to call the victim mentality, you can. I think it's addressing people's actual and real concerns. And I think American people are really suffering right now, right? And they need something to alleviate that, whether it's government intervention, better jobs, less labor exploitation. So thanks, Grant, for the tip. I will try to stop saying right.
He's working on it.
You're on the right side, so I just want to end every single sentence with a right.
He's affirming your identity. Grant, he points out, look, Trump dove into the problems that Americans were going through. Was that embracing a victim mentality? What's your response?
No, those are solutions, and pointing out how things need to be corrected. What I'm referring to is the social aspect of the victim mentality, that your place in life has been delivered to you to keep you oppressed in some way. Your actions are not accountable to yourself. Crime, drug use, social issues that we are piling up over and over and over again are the running points of the Democrats that have taken these places into the deep blue sectors. Yeah. And that is the only thing that can be parroted, is that Donald Trump is the devil over and over and over again. This is not me. Money is something that I will never be able to attain because of X, Y, and Z.
Grant brings up a good point, that if you give people the sense that they're constantly victims and it's always somebody else's fault that they haven't been able to achieve what they want, do you really empower them to be able to flourish? What's your response, Deep?
In America, we've actually had an experiment about what happens when different communities of color, immigrant communities, are faced with similar crises, right? When the black and brown communities were faced with drug exploitation, and those communities got into a cycle of both violence and drug exploitation, people would say, well, that's broken families' faults, right? That's absent fathers. And then when it came to rural America suffering an opioid crisis, right, you see the same exact people who were blaming those people like, oh, that's a cultural issue. When it came to rural white America who had the opioid crisis, they're like, well, that was the doctors. That was Big Pharma, right? On both ends of these, I see the larger system at play, right? That corporations are trying to make money and politicians are trying to get elected, and the people who suffer are the American working class, whether you're black or white, right? You can call that a victim mentality, or you can call that solutions mindset, which, Grant, I love that flip, where it's like, Donald Trump is not a victim. He's a solutions-oriented guy, which I'm like, if you have a solution, that means, you know. So, good switcheroo, Grant. I'm going to take note of that.
Good switcheroo. No. This is how we're solving things, and this is how Democrats will sidestep everything, is by pointing out that a solution to something is actually an oppressive move. When we know that every move that has been made to keep America stagnant has been made by regulation of Democrats. So this is great stuff. I'll let you guys go, but I appreciate what you're doing here. This is how we actually come to understand what not to be. Thank you.
All right, Grant from Conifer, appreciate the call. His line will be open, by the way. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Look at you. You got full phone lines, brother. Go ahead. Respond.
An interesting thing that Grant said that I want to like double tap on, and it's this fascinating cultural moment that I'm trying to understand around Trump and how Trump operates, right? He's not necessarily a fiscal conservative. He's not necessarily a libertarian. He's hard to actually plot on a political axis. The only thing that Donald Trump cares about is himself, his own power, his ego, his legacy, those things, right?
Oh, come
but those things lead to a lot of different solutions around the ideological spectrum.
Yeah.
For example, if I was to go up to Republicans like Grant and say, if America is going to invest into a steel company or a chip company, American people deserve 10% of that. I think they would scream, that's communism.
That's nationalizing a company, right? 100%,
but when Donald Trump does it, that's a great deal, right? So there is this interesting mindset where I'm trying to understand the mental gymnastics that folks will do for Donald Trump and why that doesn't extend to other folks. And that is something that Donald Trump has really tapped into. What's your take on that?
Look, it's a fair critique to go that in politics you don't have logical consistency across the board, right?
No, I don't think Donald Trump has logical consistency.
You could definitely say that about Kamala Harris.
I think she's consistent. She does whatever the donors want.
By the way, did you read her book? 107 Days.
I feel like I need to read it, but I feel like I'd suffer through it.
It's hell hath no fury.
Yeah,
like a woman's.
I just want folks to know I'm not a Kamala Harris fan. She could have done remotely better than Donald Trump in some areas, but I think she got $1.5 billion. It's like the Democratic Party is like 3 consultants in a trench coat. They're just like shifting money around.
That's the line of the morning right there, by the way. I look at our failure to understand principle-driven politics as our failure of our education system, right? So if you actually ask people what is our country, they'll go, it's a democracy. And you go, no, it's a constitutional republic. I go back to our failure in civics, our failure in education to create principles by which we want to drive our politics. But I'm also open to the idea that sometimes you need to explore new ideas. So, for instance, we're at bump out here. I was a Bush-supporting neocon. I've changed my mind on that. I think trying to create little democracies everywhere in the world fails. So you got to be open to changing your mind on that. But we'll continue this conversation live in studio. Deep Singh Badhesha joining us. He's a socialist. We're debating it all. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS.